The small downtown cafe was bustling with its usual morning crowd when an elderly man, dressed in a well-worn military jacket, slowly walked in. His back was slightly hunched, his movements slow but dignified. As he approached the counter, he patted his pocket, counting his change. Behind him, a well-dressed businessman in an expensive suit sighed dramatically. "Hurry up, old man. Some of us have places to be," he muttered loudly enough for the entire cafe to hear. The room fell silent for a moment, discomfort hanging in the air. The elderly veteran flinched but didn't respond. He simply placed his handful of coins on the counter, trying to order a simple cup of coffee. Seated at a nearby table, Keanu Reeves observed the scene, his expression unreadable behind his dark sunglasses. He put down his book and watched as the veteran struggled with his coins. The businessman rolled his eyes and laughed, nudging the man beside him. "Pathetic," he sneered. "Why do these people even come to places like this? They should just stay in the past where they belong." His words rang across the cafe like a slap. Keanu stood up, walking casually toward the counter, his presence unnoticed at first. The cashier hesitated, unsure whether to intervene, but Keanu reached into his pocket and placed a crisp $100 bill on the counter. "This should cover his coffee," he said calmly, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. The veteran looked up in surprise, his eyes meeting Keanu's. A flicker of recognition crossed his face. "Thank you, son," the old man murmured, his voice rough with emotion. The businessman scoffed. "Oh, look at this. A hero for the washed-up has-been," he mocked, shaking his head. "Money doesn't change the fact that some people just don't belong in places like this." Keanu turned his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "You know," he said, his voice calm but firm, "respect costs nothing. But the lack of it can cost you everything." The cafe patrons murmured, some nodding in agreement. The businessman crossed his arms, unimpressed. "And who do you think you are?" he scoffed. "Some kind of moral authority?" A waitress, who had been silently observing, stepped forward. "That man you just insulted," she said, motioning toward the veteran, "served in the military for over 30 years. He fought so that you could sit here in peace, sipping your overpriced coffee without a care in the world." Her voice shook with anger. The businessman rolled his eyes. "Oh, please. That was ages ago. What does it matter now?" Keanu took a step forward. "It matters," he said evenly, "because without people like him, people like you wouldn't have the freedom to act this way." The businessman opened his mouth to retort but hesitated. Something in Keanu's gaze made him falter. The veteran, having remained quiet, finally spoke up. "Young man," he said, looking at Keanu, "I don't need a handout. But I do appreciate kindness when I see it." Keanu nodded. "It's not a handout. It's respect." The cafe manager, noticing the growing tension, approached cautiously. "Sir," he said to the businessman, "I think it's best if you take your order to go." The businessman looked around, realizing the entire cafe was watching him, judgment in their eyes. His face turned red with embarrassment. He grabbed his coffee roughly and stormed toward the door. Just before stepping out, he turned back. "You think you're some kind of hero, Reeves?" he spat. "This guy's still broke, and you're still just an actor pretending to care." Keanu smiled slightly. "And yet, here you are, the only one leaving alone." The businessman hesitated for a second before storming out, slamming the door behind him. A few customers clapped quietly, and the tension in the cafe melted away. Keanu turned back to the veteran. "Why don't you join me for breakfast?" he offered. The old man hesitated but eventually nodded. "That's mighty kind of you," he said with a grateful smile. They took a seat, and soon, the waitress brought over 2 steaming plates of food, on the house. As they ate, the veteran shared stories of his time in the service, his memories of camaraderie and sacrifice. Keanu listened attentively, showing genuine interest. You know, Keanu said thoughtfully, heroes aren't the ones in movies. They're the ones who live real lives, make real sacrifices. The veteran chuckled. Well, son, in my day, we just did what had to be done. No need for thanks. Keanu smiled. Then let's just call it breakfast between friends. The cafe patrons, who had been quietly watching, left with something to think about that day. And outside, the businessman, sitting alone in his car, replayed the entire moment in his head, realizing too late that respect is a currency far more valuable than wealth. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more.